Hello and welcome to the channel Gavaxman Spins. Today's video is a ranking video of the Cult who have made 11 studio albums. So I'm not going to be including compilations, live albums or the albums that have come out under the name Southern Death Cult or Death Cult, because they were not proper albums. They were like made up of singles, radio sessions, that type of stuff. So we're going from Dreamtime in 1984 to their latest album as it stands, which is Under the Midnight Sun in 2022. But in what order, I hear you cry. So yeah, as ever with a ranking video, this is my opinion. So if you agree or disagree, please tell me in the comments. I'll tell you a little bit to start with of where I came in with the Cult, so that might help you understand some of the choices I've made. Yeah, it is one man's opinion. And the way I approach ranking videos is if I was in a sinking ship and an island was on the horizon, but my boat was sinking, and I've got my 11 Cult albums and I had to choose one at a time to kind of jettison so I could get to shore, that's how I've ranked them. So the first one would be the one that I'd have to let go first, because there'd be a nice shiny record player on that desert island waiting for me, and hopefully I'd get to the end with my kind of favourite. So I have listened to all of the albums this week, been most enjoyable. Very similar to the Cure ranking. I don't think the Cult have made a bad album. Some are better than others, and some are more cohesive than others, and some just have that spark of brilliance that sets them apart. So there you go. Also at the end of the video, I will reveal the November channel theme. October was all things goth. Been a great month, really enjoyed that. In terms of the channel, the channel's expanded, so thank you to all those that came on board and liked and subscribed. I'll tell you what's going to be happening in November. There may be a couple of clues in the video if you look carefully, but at the end I'll tell you. So number 11 in my Cult ranking. Now this isn't at the bottom because it's the only album of theirs they've never released on vinyl. There's a clue. It's because of all the albums they've made, I feel this is their least memorable. And before this week, I looked at the album, got it off the shelf, thought I really don't remember much about this album. So it's from 2001, and it is Beyond Good and Evil, which is a 12-track album. There's been quite a long gap of about 7 years between this album and its predecessor, and then there was another quite long gap after it. It was on the only album the band made on Atlantic Records. It was produced by Bob Rock, who did Sonic Temple, so all of the ingredients were there, but there's something about this album that doesn't quite ever take off. It's probably the only album of the Cult that if you said to me I'll do a playlist and pick one great track from each album, I'd struggle the most with this, because I think there's a lot of okay tracks, but there's nothing on it that really shines in my opinion. There's some good guitar riffs on there. The single was Rise, which is okay, but the track that kind of to me summarizes why this album is not that memorable is there's a track called Nico. So obviously that's another tribute to the Andy Warhol kind of starlet. So Ian Astbury had already done one on Sonic Temple called Edie, after Edie Sedgwick. Now if you're a Cult fan, you'll you know, if Edie starts up, you know the song, you know the music, and it's entirely memorable. When Nico comes on, I to this day I still can't remember it in any shape nor form. And I listened to this album 2 days ago, and even now I'm thinking, how does that one go? So it's okay, but it's not a great album. It's a good album, pleasant enough while you listen to it, but there isn't anything of lasting kind of intent really from me. And it's no surprise that I don't think it's loved by anyone in the Cult camp. There's never been a vinyl-ish version at all, not an official one, and I don't know who owns the rights. It's 2001, so it's 20 odd years ago now, so maybe when 25 years go past it, we'll revert back to the bank. But it's an unloved album in the Cult catalogue, and unfortunately it's my 11th of their 11 album. It's okay, but it is their weakest album in my opinion by quite some distance. Not bad, but it's quite unmemorable. Is probably its biggest crime. Anyhow, number 10, I Hear You Cry. So I probably now better tell you where I came in with the Cult. The first Cult record I bought was that one, She Sells Sanctuary, and that's the copy. So the slightly longer version on 12-inch. Summer of 1985, and the Cult, with this and its follow-up Rain, became one of my favourite bands of the 80s. So the Cult, along with the Smiths, U2, were one of those bands I scoured the record shops of Birmingham buying all the singles, as you can see behind me, and I've stuck with them ever since, seen them live at least 4 times, maybe 5, through the decades. I saw them in the 80s and 90s. They did a couple of shows where they toured certain albums in the 2000s, so I saw those tours as well. And they just played locally last weekend. I'm filming this in November 2024, so yeah, they were in Wolverhampton. Robert Plant, nonetheless, was in the audience, whose son-in-law is the bass player currently with the Cult. Social media in Wolverhampton was full of Robert Plant sightings on Saturday. He was at the Wolves game, and he turned up at the Cult show on the night, so he had a nice day out, you know. And by all accounts, was all thumbs up to anyone who recognised him, and was very unstar-like. There you go. So good old Robert Plant, who is, just to confirm, is not a Viking from Norway. Sorry about that one, Morton. Right, so number 10. This one changed when I re-listened to it, and it went down a notch. So sorry, Cult fans, if I'm upsetting you on this, but this is from 1991, and it would be Ceremony. Now, I think it's got a great cover for a start off, and I had high hopes of this album when it came out, because I thought it was going back to that goth-esque kind of sound of their debut. You got the old American Indian kind of references as well. Great back cover as well. The fact that I put this so low in the ranking is nothing to do with the fact that when I bought it, I got a parking ticket. That has not coloured it over the years at all. The fact that the traffic warden, the parking was free from 5:30, and I parked at 5:25 to nip into the record shop to grab this, and at 5:28 out I came to a ticket. No warden in sight. He must have ran like a ninja in Erdington High Street to give me that ticket, but I did forgive the band for that, although I've never been back to Erdington High Street since. But this album, it's a frustrating album, because the one before, Beyond Good and Evil, there's nothing particularly memorable on it, but nothing particularly bad on it. This is kind of the opposite. It's got some tracks that I really like, and then it's got some that I just don't particularly like. I don't think either of the 2 singles for me were great tracks. So Wild Hearted Son and Heart of Soul, they're okay. They're kind of a little bit caught by numbers, I thought. But the more interesting stuff I really like. So, for instance, there is a song called White. That's a proper gothy kind of Cult song. The opening track, Ceremony, is a great one. But then there are some others that I never thought quite worked. So the one that, for me, it felt to me, and I don't know how true this is, that this was a bit of a battle record between Billy Duffy and Ian Astbury, that they weren't quite in sync on this record. So there's some kind of rocker stuff on this that doesn't quite work as it did in the past. So I don't think much of Full Tilt and Earth Mofo, or Earth Mother, don't think much of either of those. So it's an okay album, but it's got highs and lows. It's not a particularly consistent album for me. Great cover aside, but and my favourite track is White. I think that's the best track on it by quite some time. So quite some distance. You know what I mean, don't you? So yeah, that will be my number 10. It did drop a place because I re-listened to the next one, and this is an album, when it first came out, I was quite disappointed with. But I re-listened to it again. I thought maybe I've been a little bit harsh to it. This is a proper album in terms of cohesiveness, but I think one side of the record in terms of vinyl is far better than the other. So I'm going to go, my number 9 from 2022, and to date their latest album is Under the Midnight Sun. And I put this a bit low because when this come out, and you'll see a little bit later why, I had really high hopes for this album, because it was badged as a bit of a return once again to their goth-esque roots, and it followed, I thought, 3 incredibly strong late career albums that seemed to get better as each one came out, and this one felt like it went backwards a little bit. I re-listened to it again this week. I think the first side of the vinyl, first 4 tracks as an 8-track album, are okay. All the good stuff is at the end. I think the second half of the album is a much stronger, kind of sweeter songs, and that's why it went up a notch. This was going to be my 10th. It ended up as my 9th best Cure album. Cure, God, I've been listening. You can tell I've been listening to the Cure a lot this week, can't you? By the way, that new album of the Cure is fabulous. This one, so we're talking about the Cult, obviously, not the Cure. This one I dropped at number 9 in my ranking because I felt it was a slightly less good album than what preceded it. But it's not bad, actually. Nice gatefold. Very minimal packaging. There isn't a lot to this one. But and this one was a weird one that when I ordered it for the band's website. This is the blue vinyl. And there was a production thing. So to start with, they sent me the cover and no record, and then eventually the record turned up. So very strange kind of release this. So it took me quite a while to actually get this album. So parking tickets and production delays, has that influence, while these two are at the bottom, I don't know, but maybe subliminally. But yeah, my 9th album would be that one. Number 8. Now this one, this is for me I'm really struggling to describe this one. I'll tell you what it is first of all, and then that might give it away. So so at number 8, I've gone from 1994 and the self-titled album just called The Cult. This is my little original double album, and I think was Ian's grunge album. I think he'd been over in America, he'd seen the grunge scene kind of grow, but he'd also seen it kind of sadly fall apart. And the best track on this one for me is a song called Sacred Life, which is very much his tribute to Kurt Cobain, Andrew Wood, people like that. So so it's kind of informed with the spirit of grunge, but also a little bit of sadness that he could see maybe where things were gonna end with the drug scene and stuff like that. And I think allegedly there may have been some struggles there personally as well. But it's a funny album. It's a total change of direction. It's not a grunge album, but it strips away the Cult sound as such. So it didn't do very well, and there was a big gap after this. There was a 7-year layoff. I think the band went different ways. I know I've got Ian Astbury's solo album, which was totally different to this, and I think they struggled to kind of connect to themselves, and I think this was almost the final Cult album. Glad to say it wasn't. It's got a great cover, hasn't it? That's a brilliant animal on the cover, but it's in one way it's underrated, but I can kind of see why it didn't do so well, because I'm not a massive fan of the production on it. The drums are a little bit tinny, but it's a cohesive album, and it is it's kind of unique in the canon. So yeah, that was from 1994, my 8th most favourite Cult album. So into the top 7. Ooh. Now the next one, I was astounded when this came about how good this was. So from 2007, produced by Youth of Killing Joke Pain. This is the belated vinyl version that came out some years later. Very good pink vinyl this is. So 2007, and born into this. Now this album was far better than I thought than anything they'd done till their glory kind of years. The sound is open. It's a little bit varied. They took a couple of risks. The single had a great lead-off single in Dirty Little Rockstar, although it did rip off the Stones a little bit, but hey-ho. But there's some really great tracks on this. My absolute favourite is one, when I sometimes read music forums about the Cult, the one I like the most on this is one most people dislike, but there's a song called Holy Mountain, tucked away at the end of side 1, which is the Cult doing Johnny Cash, and it's a tribute, I think, to Ian Astbury's late father. But it's a great song. He does the proper deep voice. He's got a acoustic-y based kind of song, and it's almost like a father to a son kind of conversation song. So I think that's a great song. It's a brilliant rocker called Tiger in the Sun, which has got one of those big Cult choruses, and you can almost feel Ian taking a deep breath before he hits the microphone. So great album, this one. But yeah, I think that's a fab album. Yeah, so some unusual songs, but some really good songs on that. And that was in 2007. And it kind of brought, I think, gave the band a whole new lease of life. They did look at the back catalogue a little bit, but they also looked forward. So, and they're, you know, a lot of those big 80s bands struggle in recent years to make relevant new studio albums. I think the Cult have come back with an absolute bang, to be honest with you. And that was a great album. What was even better is number 6, there was even better to come, because Choice of Weapon that followed it in 2012 it is an even better album. This is a really confident band. You can tell there's no fumbling around. Bob Rock, I think, is back co-producing it, and there's some great songs on here. The single For the Animals was a great rocker, but the last track on it, This Night in the City Forever, is a really good song. And again, it's one of those albums that it gets kind of better as it goes along. Life Equals Death, The Wolf, great song. Lucifer's a really good song, but that's a really strong Cult album. So that would be my number 6. So top 5, and yes, I'm going to put one of the new ones in the top 5. So the follow-up to Choice of Weapon was Hidden City, and this is that album. This is the slightly posh double 45 RPM version. Very minimal packaging, no lyrics, just the song titles. I do like to see they brought back the electric kind of font there on the front of this one, but this again is an album that's far better than it should be. You know, you can tell this band now are back on all cylinders burning. I just wrote down some of the songs that stood out for me. So Hinterland, that's a great one. Greatest of All Time, or GOAT, and the final track, Sound and Fury, is a really good epic kind of Cult song. So that's again the run of 3 albums that we've just gone through, which is these 2 and that one. That's a really good, strong kind of set of music there, and fully deserved of that, which is why I was probably slightly disappointed that what followed this I felt wasn't quite as strong as those, but they were on a real upward trajectory. So if you are a Cult fan and you've not listened to any of these more recent albums, give them a check out. They're really good, but this is the best of the bunch for me. So that would be my number 5. So quick swig of coffee into the top 4. Can you guess what they are yet? So number 4 for me is their debut album, Dreamtime. This is probably their most goth kind of album. Those big tribal drum kind of beats. The opening track, Horse Nation, is a cry to kind of arms, isn't it? They're coming over the hills and the cavalry are coming in, the Indians are attacking. It's a brilliant song. It's got probably one of their early classics in Spirit Walker. The single is there. And their follow-up, Go West, which is there. Absolutely 2 brilliant dance floor indie goth rock classics that are just thumped through. So but I like about this, it's got a bit of a spaghetti western ending in Bad Medicine Waltz. Flower in the Desert, that's a good time. Good song. Rider in the Snow, it's just a really good solid album. Just been reissued, so you shouldn't find it too hard to get a copy of that. That's my original, and if you are into the collector's corner, the very first copies of this came with a free live album as well. Sadly I haven't got that, but I did have an import copy that's a standalone release. So there you go. So Dreamtime, number 4 from 1984, and that is a great indie kind of album of its time. Very goth. the most goth they probably ever were. Top 3. So Sonic Temple number 3. So this one slayed America. And what I like about this album, it's almost like a little bit of the best of the 3 albums that had gone before it, and kind of merged their whole sound together to give this very cohesive album. It was the one that they wanted to crack America with, and I think they succeeded. It's got a great cover, hasn't it? It is a rock album par excellence. I did read a little bit about this album, and that was a very deliberate kind of image that they used to say, we are rock, you know. That's it's a guitar album, but it's I listened to this again the other night, and I forgot really in terms of side 1, side 2, the opening side of this is, you know, it's pretty much a classic kind of side 1 of an album. So Sunken, great opening, you know, that languid introduction, then bam, in come the guitars. Firewoman was a good single. It's over there, I think. My favourite actually on side 1 wasn't single, was American Horse, great song. And then Edie, which is like the ballady one, that's a big kind of song. And then Sweet Soul Sister's a great song. But the second side's good as well. It's got the obligatory Led Zeppelin Kashmir kind of rip-off in Soul Asylum. New York City with Iggy Pop on it, and the last track, Wake Up Time for Freedom, is a good one as well. For vinyl fans, if you so wish, this is a red vinyl from back in the day, an original. There you go. So nice little ready one there, but a great album. And 1989, that would be my 3rd favourite cult album. Keep trying to say the Q. No, I don't want to do that. I think it's because I watched that 3-hour live concert. I've kind of been indoctrinated into Robert Smith kind of world. That was good as well. Anyway, so back to the cult. So my 2nd most favourite cult album, and it's hard to describe the about face, which is probably giving it away, that this album was when it came out. So the first single was Love Removal Machine, and this album has a real complicated backstory, but the version that eventually came out in 1987 is Electric, which I think has got such a great kind of cover there, isn't it? And there's a statement of intent. That's a rock band, isn't it? And from the opening track, Wildflower, it is, we are not a goth band, we are a rock band. And it was stripped back by Rick Rubin. So they were pretty ahead of the time, because he at that time was more known for things like the Beastie Boys than he would have been, you know, working with English goth bands. But they really kind of just went for it with this album. And they jumped what was originally supposed to be called Peace. So they ditched that, and it came out as Electric, and Electric because that's what it is. It's one of those albums of the 80s that doesn't sound like it was from the 80s, but it's a fabulous album. There's one misstep in it. They did a cover of Born to be Wild, which I think was put on at record company suggestion. There was a song which was the B-side of Little Devil called Zap City that I think got elbow because of that. But some of the songs they left off this album are actually really, really good. That's a whole other story. But Electric, great song. You know, obviously Little Devil was a big single, Love Removal Machine. But it's a great, great album. I saw them do this one live in full on one of those kind of anniversary tours, and it was fabulous. It really was a good gig, and this stuff comes across live so well. But that would be my 2nd favourite cult album, Electric, which was supposed to be, if I can find it, Peace. So in terms of reissues, there was an anniversary reissue where they very lazily just did that. So Electric Peace, because there is the original album that was supposed to be called Peace is included on this, but literally it's just one of those. That's the only way you know it, that it's there. And there's my little gig ticket from Wolverhampton when I saw this tour. But Peace is well worth checking out. It's kind of what would have been the follow-up to, you'll probably guess, my #1 album. Same producer, and they decided it wasn't working and ditched those sessions and started again. But for a little while I was very upset with the cult, because they followed up which is my #1, the Immortal Love, with Electric, and their chalk and cheese albums really. But this one I absolutely loved, and to this day it will probably never will not be my favourite cult album. It's just brilliant, isn't it? 1985. As I said before, She Sells Sanctuary comes out. Rain, what a great single that was. All the B-sides around this time are brilliant. And out came this album. So for me, the absolute standout track on this is a song called The Phoenix. If you haven't heard that, it's an absolutely great 80s rock guitar track. It just brilliant. The guitar work on it is awesome by Billy Duffy. Drumming on this is for 9 of the 10 tracks by Big Country's drummer Mark Brzezinski, and I think that really helps the sound. And the production on this by Steve Osborne, I think, is one of the best produced albums of its time. I particularly like some of the more kind of unusual tracks. So there's a great big epic kind of spaghetti western ballad in Brother Wolf, Sister Moon, and the final track, Black Angel, is a really underrated song. But all the way through, this is a great album. And it's got those to me, the tentpole songs, which is Love itself. That kind of shows you that this is a rock band in waiting. And then The Phoenix is just brilliant. So that will be my number 1 of the 11 Cult albums. A couple of other things, if you want to do a deep dive into the Cult, there is one CD box set that came out, and I was delighted when this came out. This came out just in time for my 30th birthday, so Rare Cult. That's brilliant. It's got all the B-sides, radio tracks, session tracks, demos, B-sides, remixes. Initial versions did come, I think, with a little remix CD as well. It's a nice little book. It's just brilliant. So if you get the chance to spot one of those on eBay or something like that, that is well worth checking out. The big reselling, that also includes the first ever release of Peace, where all of the tracks that have been dashed about as B-sides or not released were gathered in one place, so it's on there as well as on this reissue of Electric. In terms of deluxe sets, a couple come out so far. There was a 30th anniversary for Sonic Temple. That's a 5-disc set. That's worth having. Got a BBC live concert at the end from 1989, Wembley 89, 2 discs of demos, and then all the B-sides as well. So that's worth having. But the best one, and it's a shame they only did Beggars Banquet started doing these lovely, what they call, I think they were called omnibus editions, which is there. They did a couple by Bauhaus and The Fall, and they also did this one by The Cult. And then I think these were going at like 15 to 20 quid when they come out there. This is a 4-disc set. But I think unfortunately as the CD sales started to do that and vinyl started to do that, and they kind of abandoned this format, which is a shame, being men are outside, because this was great. So yeah, so if you do get a chance of that, Lift Off box, and if you like the Love album, which I do, nice little booklet, excuse me, there you go, nice little book, which is quite thick there, and 4 decent kind of discs as well, so you get a live album, so that's good, actually. That's well worth having, from 1985. All the demos there, and then what is for me the cream of the crop, all the kind of singles, B-sides, remixes from the album. So well worth having. Then you do get a very nice kind of remaster. Oh, there's a gig ticket in there, so there you go. So that's when I went to that too, when they did that. But well worth having if you can find one of those. And that's pretty much my Cult collection. As you can see, I've got all the singles and 12 inches and stuff like that. But one of my all-time favourite bands, The Cult. That was my ranking video. So as I say, let me know what you think. If you agree, disagree, if you think I've been a bit unkind or ungenerous to some albums or over generous to others. But that was my top 11 Cult albums in order. So I hear you cry, what is the November theme? Well, I have posted a couple of cryptic clues on the YouTube channel, but in honour of the transition that the Cult made from being a goth band to being a rock band, the November theme will follow suit. So we will go from rock to all things hard rock and a bit of metal as well. So so that's the November theme: hard rock, hard metal, heavy metal, whatever you want to call it, primarily of the 80s to start with. So that's what will be coming up. Thank you for watching. Hope you've enjoyed. And the Cult, brilliant band. And I think, you know, none of their albums are bad, but some are kind of better than others. Thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll be able to get this video to stop, which is why I'm playing for time. But I'll hopefully see you on the next one, or I may not, depending on, I think my thing might stop working.